In today's class, horror. A PhD in horror? That's real? Yes, it is, fam. I'm going to tell you how to turn one of your greatest loves into a degree. If it's your first time here, welcome. I'm Xanthi, the feral academic, and welcome to the authentic academic movement where we are feral, honest, and anti-bullshit. The world is abound with people who want to research horror. Technically, you can do a PhD in anything. A PhD is customized to what you feel there's a research gap in. That can include horror movies. One of my mentors did her PhD in torture films. There's an entire conference called Horror Studies Now that is dedicated to horror academia. It's like my Disneyland. There are conferences that are dedicated to certain franchises. One of my early vlogs about a Nightmare on Elm Street conference. So where does one begin to be a doctor in horror? You have to decide if you can research this for 4+ years of your life. It has to be your hyper focus, like you love it so much or you're interested in it so much that you will be totally fine that it is your life 24/7. And I mean 24/7. When you're doing a PhD, if you're not doing the PhD, you're thinking about the PhD. I would think about what am I interested in and what is missing? Like what information is missing from here? And you can get ideas from other horror academics. You'll read one of their publications or their books. And typically at the end, they'll mention the findings that they had, but then what's missing. That can be used as an idea point for like, okay, so these are the research gaps that they identified that is missing from this. Is it something that I'm really passionate about? Or you might come up with it out of your own volition. And sometimes it just falls across your lap and you're like, okay, this is what I want to do. With me specifically, I am doing my PhD in youth's opinions of horror and youth who make horror movies. I had grown up loving horror. I think I started watching horror when I was 6. I loved Resident Evil 2, the video game. I have memories of visiting family in the Philippines, being upstairs, playing Resident Evil 2 and dying and just being terrified, but really wanting to play again. As for how I found my research subject, I had done a podcast with my niece. It's called Kindergeist. It's still up. It's still going. We're just having a little bit of changes because she's no longer a kinder. Oh my gosh, she's turning 18 this year, which is so wild. When we did this podcast together, it was my way of showing her films and also hearing her genuine opinion because she was 12 years old at the time when we started this.
I really think it shouldn't be rated R at all. Like, to be honest, for me, there's literally nothing really bad happened in Bird Box at all.
It might have been because there's kind of themes of suicide, correct?
My generation, which is Gen Z, obviously, we get introduced to social media and things at a very young age. So I learned about suicide when I was in 4th grade, okay? Which is a very young age to process. I'm so used to seeing suicide everywhere.
What I realized is that her opinions were so different from what adults were saying about kids in horror. You know, the typical thing is like, oh, kids, they shouldn't be watching horror. But there's kids horror too, and they always forget that. It's always like when they think of horror, they're thinking of like Terrifier or something extremely dark and disturbing. And it's like, well, there's 2 things about that. A lot of kids love that. I loved that when I was growing up. I loved Blade when I was 6. And then the second thing is there's still children's horror. And that can mean Frankenweenie, Gremlins. Horror does include that. So let's not gatekeep what horror is and that kids can enjoy it. Anyway, off track. My point is this podcast got me interested in learning more about what kids thought because we also interviewed other young people. We had Alice Mayo McKay, Emily Higgins, Amy Donald, Josh Rubin. He's not a child, but he is very child friendly. No, he's great. He needs to create his own children's horror. Feel free to listen to any of these. There's so many more episodes. This podcast got me thinking about, should I do a PhD program in this? Okay, something about children and horror really fascinates me. But I don't know exactly what my specific subject will be because that's a very broad thing, children and horror. And then I started researching myself online. I found a book called Horror Films for Children. Now she is my supervisor, the author. Let me break down the whole journey of that because it still took some time. So I find this book and I'm like, oh my God, I buy it and I read it and I'm like, this is fantastic. And then I noticed she was talking about young people who make horror films. I was like, oh my God, that's totally my thing. There are several like children who have made movies and I've always found that so incredible. I thought this is me because I'm also a director and I've worked with kids in different capacities in horror as actors. I figured out, okay, what university is she located in? I looked up the university. I liked it even more because it included a practice element. There's a different kind of PhD student called a practice-based researcher, and that means what it says. It's like you have a practice element. Half of it is the writing and the research and all of that jazz, the ones that we know about. And then the other one, in my case, because I'm film, is a documentary. I loved that. I was like, it has theory, it has creativity, and that's my jam. Long story short, I'm here. That's how I decided it. As for how the application process goes for you, look up horror academics that you admire or love. A lot of them have books, a lot of them have publication. Go check out Miskatonic Studies, Horror Studies Now, people who work at universities who take on students. See any of their areas are of interest to you. Like you have to be passionate about this subject too. And then if you find one, and there you go. Or you could just choose what you are passionate about and see if there's any universities that offer something in there. So honestly, there's so many routes that you could go. There's no one way, but this is just the way that I went. And I really, really have to stress that you must think a lot about the supervisor that you're approaching because they are going to be with you for several years. You want to mesh well with them. You want to be happy with them. When you're emailing them, inquiring about potentially being their student, you are not only pitching yourself, but you are also observing them. Is this the type of person that I feel good about, that our values align? Because you can admire someone's work, but completely not get along with them. And we've seen that plenty of times with like never meet your heroes. So that has to be a huge factor as well. Let's say you find a professor at a university and you are like, this is what I want to do. This is where I want to reach out. Email them, inquire, say a little bit about yourself, mention what you like about their work and why you feel like you potentially might be a good fit. And honestly, don't go into a long 3, 4, 5 paragraph email. Just this is an intro. They have already so many emails in their inbox. Just get to the points of what the email is about. I mean, just don't roll in there and be like, hey, you should take me on. You know what I mean? Don't say too much. That's actually one of the biggest mistakes I see, not only students, but people in general. When you're cold emailing, the worst thing or one of the worst things you can do is receive a message and it's like it'll take you 10 minutes to go through it. And I've received that a few times and I'm just like, I don't know what you're asking me. This is a lot. Just looking at it give me stress. So please keep it to a few sentences or a paragraph. You email them, they respond, you get excited, and they schedule a meeting potentially on Zoom, I would assume, or a phone call. You want to prepare for this call because they are basically checking you out. Okay, let's see what their vibe is. What are they interested in researching? How prepared are they? If all goes well and the supervisor likes you, you will have to submit a research proposal. This is where you have to land on whatever your subject is. There are several articles and videos out there that talk about how to write a research proposal, but it basically outlines in detail what you want to research, how you're going to research, how long it's going to take, and all of the nitty-gritties of convincing the university and the admission committee that you can handle this and you are prepared to take this on. Also, that they have the ability to support what you're researching. Got your research proposal. Then you have the personal essay. If you're doing a PhD, you've definitely written them before for your master's or bachelor's. It's just more of that, but focused, more on getting a PhD, and you'll have more experience. I always like to open on something that is eye catching, because the worst thing, we're talking about worst things again. One of the worst things is to be boring, and that's across the board. Keep that in mind. Never be boring. And then your CV, let's say you don't have experience in research in academia or publications. Well, try to see if there's anything in your work history or your university history that could help that, like, oh, this wasn't quite obviously like a publication. I wrote for this blog consistently, blah, 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 but also kind of practice having analytical theory work. This is why I would even recommend, if you have absolutely nothing, you could take some time, like take a year to build up those experiences, whether that's like volunteering in research or writing articles and submitting them or pitching or having a blog. That gives you more experience. And then that also gives you time to research how to write academically, because that's a whole nother thing. And I had zero experience in academia and research before I got here, like literally zero. But I have a lot of writing experience in horror journalism, because I had written a lot for Fangoria and Bloody Disgusting. But I do remember, because I didn't have something that was quite academic, I had specifically pitched an idea to Ghouls magazine about the Disney Zombies franchise. And I was like, I want to like really analyze this in like a more academic way. When that article went up, that gave me more to show. And also I did another article for Certified Forgotten that was also relevant to my research. You have to do a period of not applying, because you do need some experience. Like if you have absolutely nothing, it might be better to wait, because it's expensive to even apply and apply to multiple universities. Definitely think about that. There's definitely ways to transferable skills, as they say, but definitely be smart about your applications. You also have to look into funding. It's not everywhere that they will pay for you to research. There are some universities that do. I'm so jealous of the Nordic countries, because they actually offer basically free PhD programs, even to internationals. So I would start there and look at what they have available, but it would most likely be limited to what they need. They'll send out, okay, we're looking for a researcher in this area. It's funded, but then you'll have to make sure you're passionate about that subject. So that's another route as far as funding goes. There's self-funding, there's scholarships, there's some for domestic students and then also international. Worst case scenario, maybe you should GoFundMe. We're not above that. We're not above doing that. And I've seen cases where people have made GoFundMes and were like, please help me go to Harvard University. And then a lot of people ended up funding, and strangers like too, and family, of course. But it's possible. If you weren't able to cover everything, maybe it'll cover most. Possibilities are there. That's how you get into a horror PhD. I will link below some of the academic horror resources that I know of, and hopefully you can find something. Every day is so different. I'm a film PhD, so right now I'm in post-production with my team, outlining, figuring out the narrative of a film, watching 40 hours plus of footage. Such is the world of documentary. I will say that I love researching horror, and the community that I've found here in the UK who love horror. I felt so lucky. There's so many incredible people who research and love horror. The thing is, if I'm talking about horror, I do have to warn you, if you're thinking about starting a PhD, it is grueling. It is the hardest thing I have ever done. Ever. I've been through the military. I've been through moving. I've been through so much that is traumatic. And the PhD is the hardest thing I have ever done. Make sure you're in a mentally well place, you're grounded, you're building your self-awareness. And, this is probably scary to hear. The most scary thing is like the systemic issues. But I have hope that people who choose to stay in academia are going to try little by little to make things better. I know it's not going to take a year. It's probably going to take years and years and years for systemic issues to change, but slowly but surely. I wish you all the best of luck in this horror journey. I'm so curious to hear, like, what would you like to study? So please leave it in the comments. There's been some fascinating ones that I've read on Instagram. The most popular one that got a lot of likes was someone who wrote a paper on violence against cats that blew up. Actually, like, go ahead and post your work below if it's like horror academia. There's so many incredible horror academics out there, and we need to highlight y'all. I think that's about it. Good luck. Godspeed. I am so happy for you thinking about joining the horror academic club. Let me know if you have any questions below. Thank you for watching the video. Hit subscribe if you want to keep in touch. And like if you liked it. Wishing you a wonderful morning, afternoon, or evening. Sending love, hugs, and legal drugs. See you in the next video. Bye.